Hi, these chicken tacos. Was the chicken humanely put down? Yeah. We pet him until he died.
George Lopez, live on stage. Saturday, June 14th, on stage at Hoyt Sherman Place. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. Don't miss George Lopez Live.
Spring has sprung in the great state of Iowa, and if you've been thinking about getting outdoors with your family during the best time of year, we want to help you here at Plaza RV. We are a locally owned RV dealer in Bondurant who cares about our customers before, during, and most importantly, after your purchase. Give us a chance. We will treat you like family. Buy local. Buy from Plaza RV.
Scott Dochterman, Chad Leistikow, together on one pod, talking odds and all things Big Ten. Powered by GameDay Men's Health, with locations in Ankeny, West Des Moines, and North Liberty. From the Channel Seed Studios, this is Legends and Listeners, exclusively on Iowa Everywhere.
Hey, Hawkeye fans, Big Ten fans, and Iowans everywhere. Welcome into episode 95 of Legends and Listeners. Big show today, which is kind of odd to say for May 29th, but we waited for this Thursday afternoon live spot just because we had a lot to react to in college football scheduling, especially in our state, where there's plenty to talk about, including a big noon studio show just north of where I sit right now. Chad Leistikow here of the Des Moines Register, Scott Dochterman of The Athletic, as always, coming to you from the Channel Seed Studios, only on Iowa Everywhere. Scott, I'm going to feel like more of an interviewer today because among many other areas of your expertise, you are Mr. TV, and this is kind of a big day for you over at The Athletic.
Well, thank you. And it's been, it's fun. And I think since we're going live, we got the music playing in the background and it's pretty cool. But no, I think when you, when you talk about TV day, it's one of those days where some people, it's like the NFL is the same way. It's exciting for a segment of the population. Then there's other people who think this is ridiculous. What are you getting excited for? You already know when the games are going to be played. It's just a matter of time and network. And I'm like, yeah, but it's still cool. Right. And I think when you look at it, everybody dropped it at noon Eastern, 11 our time. And I was blessed to have the times ahead of time, just to kind of go through them. And then I put together a story today, which was how the Big Ten and its networks handle the draft. And so I talked to executives who conducted the draft for the three main networks. And it was really fascinating to go behind the scenes to see how things change and how there was an exemption made for the Iowa State game, which was not planned, and it just kind of came up late. And so there's a lot of nuance to this thing.
Awesome. Well, let's get started. Let's look at some of the top line highlights from Iowa's football schedule. A lot of our listeners are Hawkeye fans, obviously, but definitely want to get into, I mean, to me, I love nerding out on the TV stuff. So consider me, an NFL draft person and a TV person. I'm all these things, how the sausage is made. Hawkeyes, a couple of top takeaways out of the gate in September. I mean, all four, the first four games, which we've talked about quite a bit already, all have unique start times. First of all, the first two games at Kinnick are at night, which is kind of cool, even though they're, lower tier opponents, but also, I don't know, there's a little more juice to a night game. Albany at 5:00 on FS1. Week 3 against UMass is a 6:30 BTN game. But kind of the biggie in there, Scott, before the Rutgers news that's a Friday night game. You teased that, by the way, I believe, on our show a few weeks ago, if I recall correctly. That's why I call you Mr. TV. Is the Cyhawk game. I mean, that's the big top line thing here, is that it's at noon Eastern, the big noon kickoff on Fox. Rarity to have that at a Big 12 stadium, Scott. So it's an 11 a.m. Cyhawk game. First of all, a huge game. Second of all, it seems like the networks are acknowledging that.
Yeah, that's really where it starts to me and I noticed it kind of, because I'd gotten information that it was going to be a midweek or midday game, and originally Big Noon was going to head over to Florida International at Penn State. But who in their right mind would want to cover that game, especially on a major network? I mean, Penn State's a good team, and they're going to be one of the best teams in the country, as we know. But that game in itself is going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be over by the end of the second quarter. So whereas Iowa and Iowa State, we know we live it. You live it every day, living in the central part of the state. I live it, quite a few times throughout the year. And it's a big time rivalry game, and it's two teams that won a combined 19 games last year. So we're talking about quality programs, and the Big Ten has had a real problem every other year, and especially this year, of having games, non-conference games under their control at their own stadiums that are any quality. I mean, there's like only 11 games that feature power conference opponents, and I think only and then 5 of them are at home, and most of them aren't good except for Texas and Ohio State. So in this situation, Fox went to the Big Ten, was like, look, we really do not like what we have to set up here on week 2. I mean, there's there are only 2 games involving power conference teams at Big Ten venues, and the rest of them, there's just not anything measure at Big Ten home sites. So Fox went there and said, look, is there any way we can make an exemption? Because this year they were required to have all Big Ten games in the new window. And because, they already have rights to the Big 12 as well, and it's including a Big Ten game, the Big Ten granted that exemption. And as we know, that has the potential and the likelihood that Kirk Ferentz will be going for the Big Ten all-time wins record. It's a rivalry game. We know what the atmosphere is going to be like. Big noon kickoff will be in tow in Jack Trice Stadium. So I think this is the atmosphere that they're shooting for. It's one of the 3 or 4 best games across the board all day, and it'll be the best one on the Fox family of networks.
I assume, do we know if that'll be a Gus Johnson, Joel Klatt game, or is that kind of it's usually assumed, right? Typically.
Yeah, they usually take the Big Noon, so I would.
Yeah.
I'd be really surprised if they're not going to be there.
Yeah.
They like to do the biggest game of the day, and there's really nothing that fits what they would want to do, across the board. So
hey, Cyhawk, maybe in a different week might not have been picked, but obviously, it's an attractive game. I feel like nationally now, especially after Iowa State had its, best season ever in terms of wins, and Hawkeyes have their new transfer quarterback. And like you said, I mean, the idea of, and I don't know how much you think it'll be celebrated. Like, Ferentz will have 205 wins at that point. He's going to beat Albany. So he's going to be tied with Woody Hayes. I mean, how much do you think that will be celebrated? Will it be, I don't know, well, he did it over this many times and Woody's a million times better. You know what I mean? Like it's, I don't know. We went through all this with like Caitlin Clark, Pete Maravich, well, he did it in fewer games but not comparing to Kirk Ferentz to Caitlin Clark, by the way, but I'm just curious what your thoughts are. You're more of a national writer here. Are people going to make a big deal of that, do you think?
No, it's going to be a bigger deal locally, and it's going to be a big storyline for that game. I mean, Fox likes to play up whatever is important to do its game, so it's going to work that in. I mean, and it is a big deal. You're talking about the all-time wins record. Now, there are going to be people primarily Ohio State related, but others that'll say, come on, he's not Woody Hayes. He doesn't have the national championships, and I think we should all concede that. I mean, Woody Hayes is among the greatest coaches ever lived. Kirk Ferentz is a Hall of Fame coach. One of the greats, but Woody Hayes is like he's in the room. It's kind of like when you get the Hall of Fame for quarterbacks. You've got Tom Brady and, who'll be there eventually, and guys like that. And then you have Len Dawson, Hall of Famer. But even so, I mean, I'm not diminishing at all what Kirk has accomplished. Kirk is a fantastic coach. And I think that's going to be a big storyline. I think the rivalry is going to be a big storyline. It sells itself. The fact that you're going to talk about playoff situations that involve these two teams. That's going to be huge conversation because, if Iowa State has a comparable year, if Iowa has a comparable year, this game is going to matter a lot as to who gets, maybe who gets a second team out of the Big 12 versus who may, get a third or fourth team out of the Big 10. So I think the storylines for this will be off the charts that weekend.
Yeah, no question. And as we talked about, we think it's a must-win almost for Iowa to be in playoff contention. I mean, you could get there by not winning it, but you got to win this probably if you're Iowa to put yourself in a position with just the daunting Big Ten schedule that the Hawkeyes will have. And you want to have, you don't want to be in a must-win situation every single week the rest of the way. This would be a quality road win. It would get you, one more step in position. I mean, let's say Iowa State has a good season. That's going to be a really quality win if you can get it. And same for Iowa State. If it could be an incredibly quality win for them. Come Selection Sunday in football. So huge game, obviously. What do you think about just 11 a.m. game for Cyhawk? Because I mean, we're kind of been used to mid-afternoon kicks for this. Like, what do you think the vibe's going to be any different? I guess we've had some College Game Day's been there twice now. Was 2021? Was that a noon game? It wasn't.
No.
Was it? No.
No.
Because that was Herb Street.
Yeah.
That was later in the day.
That was a
producer's
mid-afternoon.
note.
Yeah.
The last time that this game kicked off at 11 was 2011 and 2017, which both ended 44-41.
Wow.
And the
Yeah,
Hawks
overtime.
offense is going to be better and defense worse. So
No,
here
wow.
we go.
So we're going to have 40 penciled in 44-41 one way or the
Overtimes.
other. Yeah, overtimes. And
Take the over. Yeah.
Both were at Jack Trice. Both were
Mm-hmm.
overtime games. Both were back and forth. I guess for excitement, that's worth it. For heart failures in this part of the world, that's probably not. But that's what the glorious sport. But no, I think 11 o'clock. It's not the ideal time, but it's not like people here are dealing with like what Ohio State did, which was 6 straight noon kickoffs in their time to end the season last year, which
That's right.
caused a lot of ruckus. And I wrote a lot about that aspect. I wrote a separate story about it, in fact. So there's, Jack Trice typically opens early for games anyway. That's one of the, because of how it's located, the grounds around it, it's a fantastic tailgating environment. It'll probably open up like 4 or something like that. And,
Sure. It should.
I'm just
5 at
thinking
the latest.
yeah, I'm just thinking about the joy of trying to get into Ames. It's such a difficult drive in.
Yeah, I'll probably be leaving Adele around 6:30 a.m. I don't know if that'll be early enough. But we'll see.
I know.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I got thinking about that 2011 game. So I was the motorsports editor at USA Today at the time. So I was actually I remember this very vividly. I was at Richmond International Raceway. Must have been like the cutoff for the playoffs that's Saturday, because they always raced on Saturday night. And I remember this was like before like you could stream things easily, this is 2011. So, but I remember trying to find like a link, like one of those bootleg links type thing to try to watch the game. Cause I had like time in the media center to watch it. And I just could get like little snippets here and there. And then I eventually saw, what was the quarterback's name for Iowa State?
Steel Jance.
Yeah, that's right.
What a great name.
Oh, no, I couldn't remember.
Unbelievable.
I was thinking Sage Steele, but I knew that wasn't right.
No. He was like Lefester Rhodes that
Yes.
day, and if anybody's old enough like us old dudes to remember
Definitely.
that, from the 80s. But he was, complete passes on like 3rd and 17, and it was amazing, entertaining game, and it was kind of the other way in reverse in 17, where you had, both teams had double-digit deficits that they overcame to take
David
leads.
Montgomery played for the Cyclones. Hakeem Butler, right?
Yeah, Hakeem Butler had a couple long touchdowns. Alan Lazard was there, and then you had, on Iowa
Nate Stanley and Amir Smith-Marset.
Yeah, Stanley had 5 touchdowns, and I remember writing about him, and there were people coming at me saying, "Well, he should have had 8." Because he was, it's like, oh, thanks, Eeyore. Guy in a first road game at Jack Trice Stadium, sold out game. He completes a comeback, throws the game-winning touchdown to Amir Smith-Marset in overtime.
Yeah. I remember the tying drive on that one. Obviously, the Wadley play
Akron.
was legendary. But I remember leading up to that completion, Stanley hit Hawkinson for a big. He made a lot of really nice completions. I just remember Hawkinson having a big catch in that stretch as well. But yeah, how about Amir Smith-Marset, a true freshman? with the walk-off touchdown in Ames. I think he was maybe 17 at the time. I don't know, maybe not, maybe 18, but still. Anyway, moving on. Let's talk. I want to save time for this draft. I want to get to it quick here. So, the rest of Iowa's early schedule. We know 5 kick times for sure. With the Nebraska game being also early, Scott, an 11 a.m. Black Friday in Lincoln. We've had that a few times, but that's interesting. Last year, obviously, was a night game at Kinnick. This year, they go back to 11 a.m. Any insight there as to how that got picked as an 11 a.m.er?
Not so much. I mean, the game that they chose opposite Iowa, Nebraska this year was Indiana, Purdue. It's all the Friday games are pre-selected. So you get to go to a different line like an airline. You get the pre-selection on these games, and CBS picked this one, and it makes sense. It's a very competitive series every year. It seems to be some sort of a field goal at the end, and a turnover by Nebraska, caused by an Iowa backup defensive end, and then a long field goal. So right. I think that this is that's really what happened with Black Friday. And Indiana, Purdue, they're both off the week before. It was natural for them to want to play there. I think not totally getting. It's more of an in-face conversation if they go into detail about this for me. Okay. But my hypothesis is that they select Iowa, Nebraska. It has developed into a great rivalry, but Indiana Purdue is a great rivalry too. But I think this one has the potential to be close and competitive with two teams that you're sure are going to be decent, if I should say. Yeah. Indiana, I think, will be really good again. Purdue, I'm not sure will win any Big Ten games, and it has the potential. Last year was 66-0. It could be like that again. So I think that's. On the safe side, you probably go with Iowa and Nebraska. Now, what's fascinating to me, Chad, and a couple of these is probably the Albany game. Right off the bat, because this is something I kind of want to reinforce that I kind of have to do this all the time, and that is that more people than not kind of assume FCS opponent, one that should be a massacre. Oh, it's going to be an 11 o'clock kick. It's going to be an 11 o'clock. That has all changed. It's no more, it's not the way it was in the old days where there was a couple of night kickoffs and then everything golden goes in the middle of the day and then that's it. Everything is shoehorned in at 11. I mean, they've got multiple windows they're trying to fill, and this one was picked up by FS1, which I think is telling because when you start to get into this, which one is more important among the FBS games? I mean, they're all, you can put them in a jar and shake them up and like ping pong balls in a lottery. But I think in this case, Kirk can and probably will tie Woody Hayes. And having it a night game at Kinnick is always a good venue, and I think having it, and it's late afternoon, really, it's 5 o'clock, which is a really interesting time, I think. So I like this. I think this is a really good way to start the season. If there was anything I was really kind of surprised with, it was that UCLA got pushed all the way into, overnight hours, and I thought that might be a game somewhere else, but Albany in Iowa, 5 o'clock kick locally is nice.
Yeah. 5 o'clock. I guess I'll have to look it up, but I can't think of a time when I've ever seen or covered an Iowa game that started at 5 Central.
The last one actually was, and that was 2017, and it was Minnesota at Iowa, known for two different things. Yep. One thing was row the boat for Noah Fant when he scored. The other was some choice words right before halftime when a certain offensive coordinator banged on the replay officials.
James Butler's fumble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was either 5 or 5:30. Yeah, maybe off by half hour, but yeah, okay. It was in the 5 o'clock hour. I know that for sure.
Yeah. Well, I remember it being a night game, but that was later in the calendar. So I guess it'll get dark, right, by the end. I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's September.
8 o'clock
late August.
August.
Yeah,
just to look at the sunset.
Yeah, I would think it's probably it's like the Rose Bowl, where the sun sets over the San Gabriel Mountains. It'll be the sun setting over the I don't know
over the hospital.
Yeah, well, it'll be the other way. It depends on where you're looking.
Yeah.
It rises on the hospital side. So.
7:42 p.m. is the sunset. All right.
Okay.
So there's my research according to some weather.
Going
site.
into the fourth quarter, it's the sunset
Yeah.
over the
There you go.
the Kirk Ferentz facility, in the background, Coral Ridge Mall,
Yeah, over the parking ramp.
the new one.
The new one, the new parking ramp.
Yes.
Oh, brother. Okay. The other thing I want to ask about on Iowa's schedule is you go from a night game at home, a Saturday night game against UMass, which obviously you're going to beat UMass, but then you got a short week, after a late night Saturday at Rutgers. So it's not only a short week, you're coming off a night game, and it's a couple, a time zone away. What do you think of that turnaround, Scott?
That's not
For the Big
bad.
Ten
I mean,
opener. No.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean it's probably a little unfortunate that they didn't get that 11 o'clock kickoff, and I'm sure we'll hear about it that week. But Rutgers plays mid afternoon anyway. They have Iowa has a 6:30 our time. They have a 2:30. They're playing against Michael Vick's team, Norfolk State, the week before. Iowa's playing UMass. I don't think either of those two games will be very competitive, just at first glance. So I don't have a problem with that. I mean, if I was going to have one, in fact, I would say that's about as perfect as I was going to get, unlike last year going out to UCLA, because you're going to Rutgers, you're familiar there, you've been there multiple times now, and it's a Friday night, but then it gives you an extra day for the next game, which we see, Indiana. And Indiana plays on that Saturday. They play Illinois at home, and then they come to Iowa City the next week. Now, one interesting fact that I'm looking at is if they happen to win, if Indiana happens to beat Illinois, I think that's going to be big noon kickoff, Indiana and Iowa, because a couple factors. When you've got Oregon and Penn State is going to be in prime time. And so then you look kind of, okay, what are the other games? Well, there are only 5 other games. Rutgers at Minnesota is not going to go on big noon kickoff. UCLA at Northwestern probably will not go on big noon kickoff. Plus, they already have one earlier. So then Ohio State at Washington cannot, because they can't have a kickoff that early on the West Coast. So then that leaves you with Indiana at Iowa and USC at Illinois. So I don't know if they'll go to the 6-day window that early. They might, but it makes sense if they did, I suppose. But they could have USC at Illinois or Indiana at Iowa, depending on how good these teams are. If Iowa beats Iowa State and Indiana beats Illinois, that's a heck of a game early in the season. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if that's the kickoff.
Yeah, good point. And then so that's an or time on the Indiana game, obviously.
And then the other one I guess Washington and Ohio State will probably be a CBS game because they'll win Ohio State. But
that's true. Yeah, that's a good point. So that either or is, sorry, I'm just calling it up.
It's 11.
It's
or
on the
2:30.
screen there. I just
it's
can't
11
read
or
that small.
2:30. Yeah,
11 or 2:30 or 3, and then November
3.
15th is the other one that we know at USC is either at 2 or 2:30 Central. I guess so. Interesting window there. That's all. Anything else on Iowa's schedule?
I mean, the interesting part to me about this team, Chad, is not just the games that we've already know now that they're, really there's 4 games that pretty exclusively times 2 that are kind of ors. But I think when you start to look at, beyond this, the games that are available to them, I mean, there are some outstanding matchups that they haven't shut down. I mean, like when you look at the rivalry game with Wisconsin on the road, that weekend is just jacked. I mean, you got potentially Ohio State at Illinois. That could be battle of undefeateds if they both win big games early in the year. Michigan at USC, Iowa, Wisconsin. What a great week. So it might get shoehorned in a direction that maybe doesn't befit that game just because the other games are so quality around it. And I think, maybe, then a couple others the following week playing Penn State at home. Here's an interesting fact for you, Chad. The games featuring Iowa and Penn State have ended in darkness every year since 2004. And this year might be the one where it doesn't. It has a chance to be big noon kickoff. So,
interesting.
So in 21 years, and then of course they haven't played every one of those years, but
Sure.
since the infamous 6-4 game, in Happy Valley. Every single one of them has been like a midday or a night kickoff and has ended in darkness. So that's something that I'll be watching there.
Yeah, and that one thing we didn't point out is the Rutgers game is a Fox game. So 2 of the first 4 games on Big Fox, and then you got CBS for sure in the Nebraska game. So that's 3, network broadcast games for the Hawkeyes, and then we probably think more as the season goes on. You'd mentioned Indiana, potentially Penn State. I mean, if Iowa's really good, Oregon. I mean, you could get a lot of them. You could be no NBC. We had a lot of NBCs last year. Sunday night, or Saturday night. I wonder if we'll get some of those this year too. But probably, right? I mean, it's kind of the world of the Big Ten now. There's a good chance you're gonna be on a network.
Yeah, and right. And one of another interesting aspect, I think, Chad, to all of this is that the Big Ten cut down on its number of Friday games this year. They went from 9 to 4, well, 5, I guess it was, but actual Big Ten games. They made a late switch last night after everything, and then so there's only like 4 Big Ten games that are on Friday nights. Iowa being among them, and then there's Nebraska, Minnesota is a interesting one. Minnesota has it twice. They get stuck going to Oregon. There's a later one there, Northwestern at SC. So really a pretty light schedule on Friday nights, but a lot of that was the Big Ten really struggled with that last year. The schools struggled with it, trying to figure things out. People were mad all the time.
Oh, really?
About Fridays, and like there are 4 teams that can't have Friday games or are given stipends. And Iowa's among them because of the hospital, and so so Iowa is. So I mean that at home. There's one team that refuses to play either way, and that's Michigan. But Iowa refuses, or Iowa can't play at home, except they volunteered. They said we can on Labor Day weekend. We don't want to, and then they will, of course, every other year with Black Friday. But they've also given up a little bit to where they agree to go on the road every year and play on Black Friday, whereas other teams are like, I don't really want to. If we don't, we'd be happy if we didn't and stuff like that. So either way, Iowa's on the road. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think playing Rutgers, if they look good, Iowa, you're playing Rutgers in a national window. I mean, that game would be on, in a window where you wouldn't get much traffic. If they go there and play well, think of the Maryland game 4 years ago. They go play well, and you kind of announce yourselves, and then you play Indiana next week. You could really start propelling you as a program in the right direction.
Yeah, that's a great point. Always fun. I like this. It's always fun to kind of envision, how the fall's going to go. I assume a lot of people listening to this are like starting to think about, 5:00 game. Can we get to Iowa City and back? You start making your plans. It's exciting. It's fun. You start thinking about the Cyhawk game. Hey, let's get our parties figured out now. We're gonna have a brunch for the game or what? Bloody Marys. It's fun to think about all this stuff, and I love it. I love it. And then now if you're a Hawk fan, also. You've got your weekend free on the Rutgers weekend, so that's a good weekend to, go to the pumpkin patch or whatever you got to do that weekend with the family. So I guess it might be a little early for that, but anyway.
Sorry, everybody. I said sorry, guys. I know how that goes.
But anyway, So start making your plans, folks, and so. Probably no more Friday games can be added at this point, right? Is that correct?
Oh, no, they're done.
Yeah, okay, so that's done. So there's 2 Friday games. Fun schedule. I like it. You know what, Scott? It's been about a year now that GameDay Men's Health has been aboard for legends and listeners, and it's been a great year. Not only for them being a part of our show, but also I feel like for both of us individually, the results have been awesome for me, and I know also for many of our listeners who have jumped aboard and improve their lives, improve their exercise, improve their bodies, their energies. They can help you with testosterone replacement therapy, among other things. But the T levels are really good for me. I continue to just be thrilled with my experience with GameDay Men's Health, with the people, the way I feel, all that stuff. Exercising every single day, at least an hour, and it's fun to be able to just exercise hard. Like shoot for things and have goals and hit them, and No, it's just a really invigorating way to live. So appreciate Game Day Men's Health. Get connected yourselves with Game Day Men's Health. You can get a private, no obligation, free consultation at GameDayMen'sHealth.com or by visiting one of their locations, as we say every week, in Ankeny, West Des Moines, or North Liberty. We really, really appreciate their support, so we can bring you legends and listeners every single week, Scott.
Yeah, we love it. They've been great to deal with, and they've really helped us out physically. And at this stage of our lives, you use that little boost.
We'll take it. Yeah,
we'll take it. So it's been helpful for me in my quest to drop some weight and also feel better about myself. So I really, and the people are great I deal with, whether it's Stacy or Alicia. Miss Alicia a couple of weeks ago, I was like, man, she makes my Monday every Monday. It's like, there she is. She kind of lightens the mood. So. Yeah, the location in North Liberty is perfect. It's right there on Penn Street, and only a couple blocks from my house.
Is it like, since George Wendt recently passed away, is it kind of like when you come in, it's like Scott?
Kind of. Yeah. Except I don't say anything like my ideal weight if I was 11 feet tall or anything like Norm did. But
that was fun to watch all those clips, man. I used to watch Cheers
it.
all the time. I love that show so much.
Yeah,
but I haven't watched it in forever, so it's fun to kind of see some of those clips again and just be reminded of. That was a good show. It
ended our freshman year in college, Chad, and I had a party that night, and I had this is how old I am, it was a bad TV, but I had a black and white TV, because it was kind of broken. It didn't really work and stuff, but we still had a party watching the last Cheers in my apartment in my first year of college.
Yeah.
So.
Good times. I want to talk about this draft, Scott. You have a big piece at The Athletic that went up, 11 o'clock today, right about when it came out. So I need to I'm reading it right now, I'm trying to figure out what to ask you the most, but I'm just going to turn it over to you and just say, 8-hour draft, it sounds invigorating for nerds like us, like to be able to pick these games. What did you take away from writing this story?
It's I love it. I'm a nerd, and even Mike Mulvihill, who runs it for Fox, is like, hey, we're all college football dorks, and we all talk about stuff, and it doesn't sound that dissimilar to what we go through with say your fantasy football draft. Except, our preparation's all kind of in fun. Yeah, you're making a little money. It is serious business for them and they start their preparation from the minute that they get they know who's going, or the schedule every year. And so they're looking at everything and the portal has really thrown another wrinkle into it because they follow it so hard. And so all that preparation, they go through mock drafts. They split their teams up. I think it was, I want to say it was NBC who told me that we have, there are times where we have, okay, you're Fox, you're CBS, we're NBC. They go to different rooms to do this, just to kind of mock each other and figure out what's most important to Fox. What have you figured out? What's most important to CBS? What's most important to us? But then there are all kinds of different factors that go into it. It's not just like the NFL is kind of easy. Everybody knows, you're going to move heaven and earth for an NFL game. With this, you have NBC has Notre Dame. Fox has Major League Baseball, and Fox also has the Big 12 and other things. CBS has a couple other, teams or schools too. You have the service academies and some other things, but nothing that really wouldn't prohibit them from airing something in their time slot. But they've got to take those other factors into account, and it's also strategy against those other factors. Like, let's say, okay, let's take the second Notre Dame game that's in prime. NBC can move 3 of their Notre Dame games into prime time. The second of which this year was USC week, and USC is playing there. It's kind of a, you don't have any issues with winning or losing if you're the Big Ten. You already got a Big Ten team there now. But if you're Fox or if you're CBS, you look at that and go, okay, well, they're not in their primetime slot. They're probably not going to draft really high this week. They're going to kind of forego it. So we've got a chance to really narrow in on a couple of pretty good games that week. And there are 3 that kind of jump out of off the charts for you that you have a really fascinating way of looking at it. You have Washington at Michigan, you have Penn State at Iowa, and you have Ohio State at Wisconsin. Those are 3 games. And depending on how the teams progress, they could be really important or they could just be merely decent. And if you're CBS or Fox, that's not a week you really want to draft a game. You don't want to say, I want to draft Ohio State at Wisconsin, because you don't know if Wisconsin's going to be bad or good. You don't know the same thing with Penn State or Iowa and Washington, Michigan, frankly. But you might want to say, we're even fine having the number 2 pick that week. So you may structure your draft and strategize your draft to say, we'll kind of come back to this one because we're not as worried about it, because we know NBC is probably going to pick it late, because if it takes a game, it's going to be one of the lower end games because they have other priorities. And then likewise with NBC, you're going, well, we've already got USC and Notre Dame. We'll be happy getting the 4th game here because we're going to put it on Peacock or whatever. So that's a fascinating element to this. But kind of getting back to the structure of the draft, they don't do it in person. They do it via email, which is strange.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because I asked, do you guys do it through teleconference? And they said they used to, but it's just too long. They said that and I'm like, Slack channel or DM or whatever. No, email works for us. They're in different locations, so they're not all in one big room, and and so the Big Ten facilitates it. They're given different picks, like the league assigns the picks. Fox has the first 3 picks.
Fox is first 3, okay.
Yeah, and 5 of the first 11.
Okay, so Ohio State, Michigan, always off the board, right?
They're always off the board.
Number 1.
Texas, Ohio State would be 2 this year, and Ohio State, Penn State, I think was number 3. I'm not 100% sure, but and that one they don't have to announce, but it's like Ohio State, Penn State. Then it rotates who gets 4. It's like, they didn't clarify this, but I think I can talk about it, and I think I'm right. 4 does rotate every other year. Okay. Like last year, and this was interesting for last year, you had number 4 was CBS. And so NBC traded its number 5 pick to 3 with Fox.
They need somebody to announce these things. NBC has traded the pick.
Yes, they traded the pick up
for
to
a
Fox.
Future, yeah.
And
a bag of balls.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, it was pretty good picks for everybody either way. Like
good.
Fox was like, we were happy to do it. We got a better selection. I think they ended up with like 6 on the top 11 or something like that. Okay. But then also, they went up to get Oregon, Ohio State.
Moved up.
Yeah, they did.
I love it.
Yeah, and then CBS took Michigan, USC, which it was kind of targeting, but of course it would have taken Ohio State, Oregon instead. But it was targeting Michigan, USC because they felt like this is USC's first Big Ten game, and it's against a traditional power Rose Bowl matchup. They liked the symmetry with that. And then Fox was like, we lucked out because we got the game we always wanted anyway, which was Ohio State, Penn State at number 5. So they didn't have any issues there. But anyway, this time it would have been 4 would have been NBC. 5 would have been CBS. And NBC was fortunate to get Oregon and Penn State at Happy Valley. And it was...
That's a good pick.
Oh, it's a great pick. And for them, this is the strategy involved that they were really hoping for. And I think the Big Ten was too, because there was some angst in Happy Valley about not having the whiteouts and stuff. But it's a big deal to them.
I know.
Yeah, I know. It's easy to kind of roll your eyes.
It's like the sunset with the Rose Bowl. Come on.
Yeah, I know, but
I get it.
It's a scene, but it fits into their larger strategy for that weekend. They want to own the weekend. They want to kick the weekend's ass because they have the Ryder Cup, and they feel like the Ryder Cup can lead into that Big Ten championship rematch in an iconic venue with this crazy setting, 2 great teams, and on the other side, they got to peer over their shoulder I think it's Alabama, Georgia that week. Wow. So they've got it's Alabama at Georgia. So they've got a tough one that they'll probably face. They haven't set that time yet, but I imagine it might be head up. And then the next day, not only do they have the Ryder Cup finale, but then they also have Dallas and Green Bay in NFL. So they wanted to really just own this one weekend. So that's kind of how they strategize to get everything involved there. And Now CBS has other options, and sometimes they're still kind of coy about some of this. Some of it they'll talk about, and then other parts they'll just say, I don't want to say anything. But in this case, and I think they go like 5 and 6, and then NBC goes 7, and then Fox 8, and then whatever order on 9 and 10, and then Fox again at 11. BTN also has selections involved, but they're later on, of course.
The conference assigns these, correct?
Yeah, they assign the numbers.
Okay.
Each one of them has
All right.
a value, and then they're the ones who provide it in well in advance, so they know what they're doing, and there's
Okay.
no questioning, and the league has to approve the trades.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah.
But there's no chimes that go off. I've been told that. Nothing like that, because I was joking with Mike Mulvihill, and then when I wrote the story, Kevin Kugler's like, "Oh, they should sell something. They should televise this." I'm like, I said I would buy, a short, a term to watch this go.
Yeah.
I think it would be a lot of fun, but
It would be if you could do it quicker, Yeah, but
Yeah.
so there's 124 games. Do I have this right? I'm reading your article. 124. I don't want to give away the whole thing, but 124 games, right? So do they do 124 selections, or is there sort of some? Because some of the games aren't picked yet, right?
Yeah.
So
well,
how does that work?
Out of the 124 that are Big Ten owned, I think it's 54. Out of the 124, I believe it is. There's some number that gets taken out because they're for Fridays and special dates and stuff like that. And then they go in order, and then they pick. And then there's times, some of them in the back end they'll clean up a little bit later if they need to. But yeah, they'll select games that are kind of, or like Mulvihill from Fox was really adamant. He said, look, your first 4 or 5 picks are picking the games you want. The next picks after that, you're picking slot on the weekend. So you might say, let's go to weekend. Let's see. Let's go to the October 25th, for instance, that weekend. And here's the slate, and none of them have been picked, not even on Friday night. You have Wisconsin at Oregon, Michigan at Michigan State, Minnesota at Iowa, Illinois at Washington, UCLA at Indiana, Northwestern, Nebraska, and then Rutgers, Purdue. I think I put them in order of probably most likely to be selected, but that's a weekend where you're not going to want to pick one game. Maybe Michigan State stands out. Maybe Oregon stands out as being a team. Maybe the rivalry too with Minnesota, Iowa is interesting. But you're going to maybe say, you know what? We'll be number 1 that week, and then we'll be number 2. But even if you're number 3, you don't feel bad. You don't feel like, you got the number 3 pick, but you've got a decent game, and then there's some other potential there. I mean, who knows? Illinois could be really good, and I think Washington's going to bounce back with Devon Williams at quarterback. I think he's outstanding. So, so that maybe that game just rises, and it's like, wow, this is organically better, the best game or the second best game on the schedule. So, so they'll pick weekends. Now, Fox has like the number 1 pick in the last week. It's going to take Ohio State, Michigan, and it's already announced it. I mean, you just be a fool not to do that.
Yeah, right.
but if you're the other, if you're NBC or if you're CBS, instead of picking instead of picking a select game that weekend, because you already know you got Friday games, you already know you got Ohio State, Michigan. You look at the rest, Chad. Is there one that right now today I've got to have that game as number 2? I don't see it. I mean, Wisconsin, Minnesota, I'm partial to. USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington. They all sound like nice games. Penn State is a ratings driver. You never know. Illinois could be really good. But I wouldn't pick. I would pick this. I'll take second pick as opposed to saying I will take, the Axe game or something like that, because you just don't know what might be there.
Interesting. Any other little takeaways before we move on to the college football playoff?
Oh my. I'm just trying to think, because everything's like, I'm sure I'm losing things is out of my ears the way things are going. But
yeah,
the banter is kind of funny. I was told that, I said, do you guys, when you're in a fantasy football draft and all of a sudden somebody falls to you and you didn't expect to be there. You're like, yes, I got him. Or you're like, oh man. And all of them were like, yes, that's happened. And no, I will not tell you which games those were.
Yeah. If it's anything like my drafts, it's like whatever I want, it goes right before me.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's like, oh, I wanted David
That's
Johnson.
Everyone else is smart too. So
yeah. So
these are multi-million-dollar decisions. I mean, huge decisions, right? Because you got to get the ratings. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if it's the difference between if you're talking, $3.5 to $4 million on a good game for a Big Ten game to, hey, if you got a great game and a great time slot, it might be 8 million, viewers, and that is unbelievably different. I mean, it's in their part of in their world, the way they're judged, that is everything, and that'll get you fired, that'll get you hired, if you make the right pick there. So. That's why they spend so much time and energy and go through mock drafts, and they call it the war room that they're in, and it's fascinating, that's for sure.
Well, the college football playoff continues to make headlines. Scott, where are we at? What's the latest? We've heard Greg Sankey saying the SEC is gonna break away at some point. Which does that impact the Cyhawk game too? If there's these Big Ten, who was it? Brian Kelly saying they want to schedule the Big Ten every year, and I saw someone else tweet, "Hey, they already do that every year in the Outback and the Citrus, and all that stuff, Music City." Yeah. But anyway, what's going on here with the SEC and the Big Ten and the future of the college football playoff?
Well, what I can tell you from the top, Chad, is that they're going to expand to 16 starting next year. That's the given. It's going to go from 12 to 16 after this coming season. How they structure it is where the big question mark is right now. The Big Ten's plan, what the Big Ten really wants, is the automatic bids for multiple reasons. I mean, number one, they believe that they're good enough that they deserve to have 4 teams, and let's localize this and break it down to the Iowa State game. Yeah. Let's say Iowa beats Iowa State on a last-second field goal like Iowa State did last year, but yet they lose to Penn State and Oregon, and they go 7-2 in the Big Ten, and they're 10-2 overall. Whereas Iowa State doesn't lose the rest of the way, but loses in the conference championship, and they're 11-2. There's a chance, even though that when they start stacking them up, that maybe Iowa State jumps Iowa. And yet what Iowa or the Big Ten will say is, look, on our schedule, we have 4 teams that won at least 11 games last year, including Iowa State, but Indiana, and plus rivalry games. I mean, Nebraska should be better, Wisconsin, Minnesota, really tough schedule. Well, you don't take that into account as much because even though you can make the numbers work for you, it's somewhat subjective. The SEC has the same issue. They just have 8 games instead of 9. But the Big Ten is fearful that, whether it's a 10-2 team or certainly a 9-3 team that's very qualified will get pushed under. So that's why it wants 4. The other part is, and this is a revenue generating opportunity, is to have the play-in games, which they are all in on, if that can happen, which is 1 versus, the championship weekend, 1 versus 2, 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5. And the winners of those games automatically qualify, as will the number 2 team. And then the other 2, let's say there's a 3-6 upset or, something like that, will be able to get in line for an at-large. Last year, Iowa would have been in that. They would have been the 6th seed in the, and played Indiana. I wouldn't have liked their chances, but they still would have gotten in there. And, so they're
Jackson
pushing.
Stratton. At the quarterback. I think Brennan Sullivan might have been back by then. Anyway,
might have been. That would have been good for them, that's for sure. But either way,
wouldn't have won that game probably.
I don't think they would have. But either way, I mean, that's kind of where the Big Ten's coming from. They're making a heavy push. The SEC is kind of, they're rattling their sabers as always, and they do deserve 4 in this kind of environment. They are the quality conference. They have the same issue that last year, I mean, they had some really good teams that all beat each other up and knocked each other out. And they're fearful that, like what happened to Alabama, Alabama deserved getting left out, but that's their rallying cry that, hey, Alabama was 9-3 and beat Georgia, yet they lost these games. And so I think, ultimately they'll probably get that. It's just up to the Big 12 and ACC, which are pushing for the 5+11 plan, 5 champions, 11 at-larges. And the SEC kind of is like, we might be all right there, because then some years they might get 6 in the playoff.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, I don't understand why. I mean, the only reason I like the 4-4-2-2-1 idea is that for the play-in stuff. The play-in thing is interesting to me, because then if you're in the top 6, you got a shot, and that's going to give Iowa a better shot every year to get in, because they have a better shot to be the top 6 than they do maybe an at-large, potentially, and they can play their way in, so to speak. Typically, they get better as the season goes on. That's all positive for Iowa. But yeah, I feel like you could get boxed out if you do 4-4-2-1. Just if you present that same exact scenario as you just did to me. Let's say Iowa was the 5th team in the Big 10, and it beat Iowa State, and Iowa State ends up getting an automatic. Just they're automatically in.
Yeah.
As the second Big 12 team potentially. And again, I'm not trying to pit Iowa and Iowa State here. I'm just saying, using the example you gave. So I don't understand why you can't just let it play out, I guess, if you're the Big 10 and SEC. If you're good enough, you're going to be good enough to get these bids, I feel like. And you should get 4 out of 16. I mean, most years.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to, like, is there going to be 5 Big 12 teams in? Probably not.
No.
I mean, unless they deserve to, and that's just probably not going to happen in the current structure.
The ultimate fear is they're afraid of the selection committee. They're afraid of humans making these decisions. They'd rather take the subjectivity out of it. And, we've all seen mistakes being made at this level for these things. So I don't know. I can see it, because I think you do want to kind of protect your better teams that don't have a chance. I mean, we can disagree about it. I think it's a matter of, it's not so much the 10-2 teams, although last year, if let's look at it for what it was. If Iowa would have been 10-2, won the games it should have won, lost to Ohio State, and lost to, I don't know, take a pick on all the other ones, then they're still left out. And why are they left out versus SMU or Indiana? If Indiana's 11-1 and played what looked to be a fairly weak schedule, I will stick up for them and say, last year they did play both returning championship finalists, and then played the championship finalists too for 2024. But on paper they had a weaker schedule, and you'd feel like that sucks. And then likewise, if you're in one of the you're in the ACC and you're playing an 8-game schedule, and you miss Clemson, and you have a good team, and all of a sudden you're 11-1, you may not have played anybody, and you're playing in a lesser league. So they're trying to protect themselves a little bit. And then, of course, those games really, I mean, can you imagine, like, Iowa's a number 4 seed, and they're playing Penn State first weekend in December, and for the right for a playoff bid, and it's at Kinnick Stadium?
Yeah. So the 3-4 would play at home and we don't know for sure, right? But is that the idea?
I think that's the idea.
And then the 1-2 would be in Indy or wherever the championship
probably
is.
Yeah. And although I that could always change too. I mean, I could see them saying, you know what, let's, if we're gonna have 3 games in one day, let's just save the money, play it at the number 1 seed.
Yeah, that's true. Could you do like the 3-6 game at noon at Lucas Oil, and then the championship game at 8?
Yeah, you can
or
do
is
like,
that too much? Is that too much traffic downtown? Or hey, maybe give fans it's like the NCAA tournament. Give them I guess that doesn't make sense, but like a 2-session pass,
Yeah, they could. I'm not going to dispute any of it. I think what you could do is play it, just spitballing, like Friday night. It could be like 4 or 5 game, 3-6 at noon, and then 1-2 at 8 or something like that. But on the other hand, if you're you're Oregon and you're playing Penn State like last year, and you're playing in the 4-5 game. How many fans are going to travel, especially when they know that,
Short notice,
that it's
Right.
for
True.
for a Big Ten championship, maybe, but even then, this does devalue the Big Ten championship game.
Oh yeah, I've always thought this playoff devalues all these conference title games.
Yeah.
Other than you get the seed at this point.
Yeah, right. So
Or seed, but that doesn't matter as much now if it's
Yeah.
16,
hmm
right? I
Yeah.
mean, because you're all going to play in the first round. Now, I'd rather play a 16 seed,
yeah, sure.
than get the Oregon draw from last year, but still.
Yeah. What do you think of that idea, Chad, though, that they're not going to play 116, 215, that the first round will be like Army Navy weekend, and it'll be 3 versus 16, 14 versus 15, and then they'll play the next, first round and play it like tiered as opposed to just a straight
Oh, is that what they're
tournament.
proposing?
It's an idea. It's a discussion point. I don't like that.
Yeah, it potentially adds more games to, let's say Ohio State.
Yeah.
Is your 13 seed just because they could end up playing like 18 games? Something like that. That's pretty crazy. 17, 18 games, but
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't like that. But I also don't like the idea of we saw enough blowouts last year. Early blowout. If we're gonna go to like Bama versus, group of 5 win, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I smell a lot of blowouts in this format, but I guess it's gonna get TV viewers.
Yeah. Right. Well, what we've noticed, Chad, though, over the years, particularly probably since the college football playoff went to 4 teams, is that has superseded any and all bowl games. It's now, that is almost like the NIT going to a bowl game. And, before it was still kind of relevant and fun, but now, the worst, it's like, you hate to say it, but the worst bowl you could go to is the Citrus Bowl, because you just missed out on the playoff, and how exciting are your fan base to, especially if you feel like you should be there. And I think more teams that taste that playoff atmosphere, and after going to 2 of those home sites, there's nothing like it. It's completely different.
Yeah, and then if assuming the SEC would do a similar thing, like a play-in.
Yeah, that's our plan too.
So yeah, then you're talking about, instead of a 12-team playoff or whatever, you're talking about going into the last, before Selection Sunday, at least 20 teams nationally, if not more, have a chance to get in. You're just gonna have fewer opt-outs probably, I'm guessing, in that case too. So it does. I do like that aspect of it too, and and let's be honest, it does help a program like Iowa's, because it's in that 16 to 25 range most years. Sometimes you get up to 12-ish, 10 maybe, but most years, the way things have been going, Iowa's going to have a prayer, as long as they do got to get quarterback right here eventually, but. It does seem like it would be a good thing as far as getting into the playoff. Now, doing damage there, different conversation, but getting in, at least you give, that's something to play for. I wouldn't want to see the Deacon Hill team in the playoff, though.
No, I wouldn't either. That would have been bad news. But, I think what this does, though, Chad, is, and we'll talk provincially for let's say the Big Ten West. They're 0-10 against the East in the championship game all those years. And there were some good teams. I think Iowa won 15. I think Wisconsin had a few really good teams that lost. Those teams, what do you have to play for now if you lose? We talked about last year, Chad, when they lost a couple of games early. It's like, okay, now what? At least before you were playing in November, you had a chance to win a division title, and now it's over. This gives you that opportunity to keep playing. You lose maybe 2 league games, say you're 1-2 out of your first 3 games, and because you played like Iowa in 17, played a hell of a schedule right off the bat. Now you've got that opportunity to keep playing, keep getting better. Iowa, as we know, has been outstanding in the month of November for the last 5 or 6 years. And maybe you'll have something to play for, and that really spurs them, because I think we saw that last year, Chad, that this team kind of waned mentally at times, and it kind of got back, but it took a little bit out of them. I think after the Michigan State game, just really, and Ohio State, Michigan State, and that really outbid them, I think, for a little while.
Yeah, and yeah, it's not that. I guess I kind of wanted 14 versus 16 just because I felt like I kind of, just as a purist-ish, I mean, I'm not, kind of wanted like, hey, let's give the 1 and 2 like a bye. Like, we'll have something regular season-ish to play for. But I guess 1 versus 16 and 2 versus 15 is probably a bye. But I don't know. I get, like maybe the 1/16s is going to be like just the NCAA tournament, It's like, hey, here's the Cinderella matchups. Can they, will a 16 ever beat a 1 in the college football playoff, Get to that point. But football's so much different at the same time, you know what I mean? Like, it's hard to beat a 1 in football if you dominate the trenches. We just saw that last year in the playoff,
Well, if you look at last year, I don't know who would have been 16, but let's say it was Ole Miss with Jackson Dart.
That's fair.
That
That's
defense.
Fair. Yeah.
I mean, if they're going on the road and they're playing Penn State, I mean, that's not your typical. That's not a game where you're going, oh man, that's a little lopsided. Now, SMU probably fit into that. Boise State a little bit fit into that. Tennessee and Ohio State did certainly, but Ohio State had a lot to do with that too. But I think there are some of those teams in the Big Ten and SEC in particular that they have a couple close losses. They're 9-3. I mean, you take a tournament team like Iowa in say 2018, when you have Hawkinson and Fant, and you had some moments there, and there's potential to do some damage. So I think it's, if nothing else, it's interesting, and it's gave us something to talk about in late May.
Yeah, exactly. Well, good show, Scott. Thanks for doing this live one with us. Aiden, thanks for setting it up. Thanks, Iowa Everywhere. Hope listeners enjoyed this as you're heading out for your work day. For Scott Dochterman, this is Chad Leistikow. Legends and listeners with you every week, even through the summer, from the Channel Seed Studios, only on Iowa Everywhere.